Hi, I'm Eliza and I'm a tech founder. This vlog series takes me through my journey in starting a company as it's happening, not just in the retrospective. I'm hoping that by doing this, we can all learn something along the way, including and maybe mostly me. I'm hoping that this series will provide a way for others to feel less scared about this startup journey by being a lot more honest and a lot more up to date with what's going on. So I was actually going to make this video about something else entirely, but last week was pretty tough, both for personal reasons and for business reasons. They were happening at the same time because of course they were. Anyway, I wanted to reflect on this week more generally than anything, because I think every experience, even the ones that are not happy, are still things that we can learn from and hopefully improve for next time. Anyway, I wanted to reflect on it in as general a way as possible, because even the bad experiences can still teach us something, and I want to make sure that I've learned everything that I can. So one thing that is great about starting your own company is that you get to make all the decisions. One thing that is terrible about starting your own company is that you have to make all the decisions. I have a newfound respect for the big CEOs at the top of the companies, because making these decisions are hard, and so far we're just starting out, so all of our decisions are actually relatively small in the grand scheme of things, and even that has been super intense. So I can only imagine once it gets to these really big decisions that affects people's jobs and tons of money and the future of the company, that it would be just even more stressful. Making decisions is hard because you don't actually have all of the information available to you when you're making the decision usually, and also you usually have different people with different interests that are competing together. So there's usually not one way to optimize for every single person, which is hard. And while I think that I'm doing a pretty good job of taking in information, understanding all the pros and cons, and then making said decision, what I find is that I'm having a little bit of difficulty dealing with the consequences of said decision. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I think if I think about why it's so difficult for me to deal with the consequences of decisions I make, there are a couple of reasons for it. One is that I always thought that when you make the decision, you'll feel so relieved afterwards because you've made the decision, and then sort of assumed that everything would fall into place. But the fact is that when you're making a decision and you think about the pros and the cons, just because you've made a decision doesn't make those cons go away. You still have to actually live with the reality of what those negative repercussions are like. And you may not have fully thought through just the reality, even if it is still the best decision. Sometimes decisions that you make are not going to be popular with everyone, or maybe even might be majority unpopular in the short term, and that's tough to deal with. And then of course sometimes you look back on your decision and you just realize that you made the wrong decision. So what do you do about this situation? How do you better deal with the consequences of your decisions? So one thing that I like to do to make me feel better about my decisions retroactively is I like to think about the precedent that I'm setting. So for example, if you decide to stand your ground on something, but then later waffle, what you're saying is that you can be pushed around, and that makes future decisions much, much harder to do. And that makes future decisions much, much harder to do. Just because some people don't like your decision or it isn't super popular doesn't mean that it's wrong. And it's okay to have people disagree with the decision that you've made. It doesn't mean it's wrong, again. On the other hand, it is possible that you make the wrong decision. I think that it's fine to reevaluate, but I think that only needs to happen when a truly new piece of information comes along. It can't just be the same information that you heard the first time spun again. Because what happens then is something that's even worse than making the wrong decision, which is to just keep going round and round in circles, driving yourself insane, switching back and forth between both sides, which puts you in a lock so that you can't do anything at all, even the wrong thing. Finally, I tell myself that I can't realize the full ramifications of my decision until a long time after that decision is made, especially for some of these like larger decisions. And you know, things might not have turned out the way you hoped. That also doesn't mean that it's wrong, because if you had chosen the other way, there could have been all sorts of other unintended consequences, and you would have had to have lived with those other cons. There's always going to be something that suffers as a result of your decision. So that doesn't mean that what you did didn't minimize those or have been the right things in order to get the good things that you were going after. So I think regretting decisions doesn't make any sense, because you just don't have any idea what could have happened the other way, good or bad. And finally, I like to say to myself that making the wrong decision is okay. As long as you can recognize it, make it right, fix it if you've hurt people, move on, and most importantly, learn from it, it should be all right. Think about your decision-making process. Is there something else that you should be doing when you make decisions? Is there someone else that you should be consulting? Is there a way that your process is flawed? Or was it just that everything was right, but just that time there were unforeseen consequences because there was information that you just didn't know? You know, just try to give yourself a break sometimes. Anyway, that's all the time that I have this week. Let me know in the comments what decisions you've had to make, whether you thought that they were the right decisions or not, and how you lived with the consequences. Feel free to share this video with someone who's currently making a tough decision. Be sure to subscribe, like us on Facebook. See you next week, and until then, keep building.